We'll be creating this, drawing on something and then wiping it away. And in order to do this, we're going to need some assets. Here in Photoshop are two hands, but I only need one of these hands, this one. Using the marquee tool to marquee, select, draw out what I need, and I do need the thumb, so I'll click off and draw again. Image crop. I'm going to make this a PNG with an alpha background. Right now it's a solid background. Pick up the magic wand tool, click on select subject right there, and it usually does a good job. Miss a few pixels right here, and I should correct this now, but later on I'll show you how to correct it after the fact, because while you're working in After Effects, you never know when you come up with an issue. You want to be able to jump back, make a correction, and see that workflow. Knock out the background. All it was the magic wand tool and clicking on select subject. Copy this selection, Command C or Control C on a PC. Paste it, Command V or Control V throughout this bottom layer. And save this out as a PNG. File, export, save for web and legacy. Click on save and save the hand. And I'll do the same thing for the hand with the piece of chalk in it. Marquee tool just to get what you need. Don't need that extra stuff. Image crop. Magic wand tool. Select subject. Copy, Command C, Control C. Paste, Command V, Control V throughout that bottom layer. And save the file, and then you're ready to begin. In order to get this done, you sometimes have to get creative on your path of working. First part, let's just get the icon alone and then be able to draw out that icon using the image. And now let's take a look at this SVG and getting it back into After Effects as an Illustrator file, so this way it can be used as artwork. Open up Illustrator, open up that file, and luckily there's no hard part. All you have to do is to save this file as an Illustrator file so After Effects can open it up. File, save as, and just select the type to be an Illustrator file, Adobe Illustrator, and save your cloud. And go back to After Effects. Let's import the Illustrator file, File, Import File, selecting the cloud, clicking on Import, and clicking OK. Make a new composition, new composition. Call it my final scene. This is a toggle to turn on and off the background of the composition. With it off, and I drag out the cloud to this layer, we don't see the cloud because it has black stroke around it. So turn this back off in order to see that stroke. The goal is to make this drawn out, and different artwork would be different approaches. Quick way could be to redraw this piece of artwork, but then it's not the original. That takes some time. Here's one alternative. Convert this to a shape, and that's the first step. You could right click, or with this selected, go into Layer, Create Shape from Vector Layer. Here's our original Illustrator layer, and I don't need it anymore, so I'm pressing Delete key down here. It doesn't delete it from the project, just deletes it from the timeline. Let's explore this layer. You open up the group and content, you can see the different parts this is made out of. I can notice it's missing a stroke, and that's because the fill is what's making up this thickness here. Let me delete the fill. And yes, you could delete properties. Here's the path. going around it, and there's actually two paths, an inner and an outer path. I'm going to select path 1, which is the inner path, and I'm going to press delete. All right, we have this line, but if you try to give this line some properties of a stroke up here, you're not going to see it because there's no stroke property over here. To quickly get a stroke property on this path and to be able to see it, here's what you do. Click off so you have nothing selected. Pick a shape, any shape, and just draw out that shape. You could adjust the shape stroke by clicking the word stroke, making sure solid is selected with no stroke. That means we're back in the same situation of the current cloud without the stroke on it. With the stroke on it, it looks like this. Normal for the blend mode and 100% for opacity. And you can change the thickness of the stroke by going up here and typing a new number. 5 or 20 or 50, whatever you enjoy. With this new shape selected, let me pick up the move tool again so I'm no longer clicking out and creating shapes, but I'm selecting things. Go under content and go to the rectangle. And under the rectangle, you find stroke. Highlight the word stroke, this property, and copy it. Command C or Control C. Go to your cloud outline and go to its contents and press Control V for paste. And now you pasted the stroke onto this path. I no longer need this placeholder one, so I'll select it and press delete. Now that it has a stroke, let me show the composition again. What can you do with this stroke? I'm going to change its color, and the color can also be changed by clicking here and picking color. I'm going to add a trim path to this so it's drawn out. Selecting this path number 2, and this is just good practice, and you'll see later on if you have compound paths, you want to be able to maybe give each path its own trim. So selecting the path right here and going under Add Trim Paths. And that will attach this trim path within this group. Expanding trim path 1 and going to the end offset, and I'll just drag that all the way down to 0. And I'll put my keyframe for end right here. I'll go out to 1 second. If you don't see 1 second here, you can toggle in between by pressing the clicking off, pressing the Control key on a PC or the Command key on a Mac to toggle between hour, minutes, seconds, or frames. I'm going to leave it at frames. So pressing the Control key and clicking, or Command key and clicking those numbers. 30 frames is 1 second away. And I'll increase the end to 100%. Within 1 second, we have that cloud drawn out. The next step, let's start building up the scene. I'm going to import a background, File, Import File, and there's the chalkboard. I'm going to drag the chalkboard beneath the cloud. We don't see the cloud because it's being drawn out. And we can play with the different mode effects to mix them together. If you don't see the mixing effects here, make sure you click on this icon for expanding that. Go to Mode, and you could pick maybe an overlay. That will get some of the grain happening there. Maybe I'll come back to that. Purpose of this video, I'm going to leave it as normal so it's easier to see. To have the hand draw this out, we need a hand. Right click, Import, File. You could went under File, Import. I'm going to be using my hand PNG assets that I made earlier in Photoshop. And it's going to be this one, the one with the chalk in it. I'll click on Import. So that's a PNG file. I'm going to drag that to the topmost layer. Take a look at the scale. way bigger than I need. Now holding down the shift key in uniform, scaling it down, spacebar to move it here. I have the move tool selected, that way I can reposition it. The anchor point's important. If we want this arm to tilt a little bit, rotate a little bit, you might take a moment to readjust the anchor point. Maybe it goes a little more towards where the elbow would be. Make sure to pick up the move tool again. So let's get start drawing out here. Let me move my hand into position. And the rest is just you being an artist. Before I continue, let me scale up the hand. I think it needs to be a little bigger, like this. And I'll drag it back down to position. At this frame, I'll press P for position, and I'll put my first keyframe. And the rest is just you being an artist. Move ahead a few frames, hold down the control and right arrow. Let's say 3 frames later. Control right arrow, 1, 2, 3. Another 3 frames later. 1, 2, 3. Getting there. Control right arrow. Let's take a look. And even though it's not following exactly the line, like it's missing this little indent here, in real time you're not going to notice that. If you care, I do care, but if you visually care, like it actually makes a difference visually, then you could go to that exact moment and just move the hand to here. You can zoom your timeline a little closer, maybe a frame back. Right around there, it could be a little lower, adding that extra keyframe, if it visually makes a difference. Let me continue with my control right arrow, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm just positioning the hand, get it go all the way around. 2, 3. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. That's where it ends. All right. Now we need the hand to enter and leave. I have no enter animation for the hand. Let me do the leave one since I'm here. 1, 2, 3. And that seems to be our visual rhythm, but I'll do it twice. 1, 2, 3. And I'll just drag the hand off. Where is it momentum-wise? It's going up this way. So instead of an abrupt stop, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, maybe it drags itself down this way. All right, don't forget about the hand's momentum. It just doesn't fall. Okay, we got our cloud. As I mentioned, we didn't get the cloud, the hand to show up. And we already started this. That's all right. I'm going to select both of these layers, the hand layer and the cloud layer. I'll just move them a little further down. So with them both selected, I just dragged the layer right here. So now there's this pause before it begins. Now, just to the hand layer, I'm going to extend it backwards towards frame 0. And that means when you see the double arrow, like that, just click and drag all the way down to frame 0. And let's look at the momentum again. That hand has to be coming in from the lower right. So if I press P for position, here's our first key drawing out the cloud. And at frame 0, my hand maybe is over here. I think it happens a little too quick getting on screen. I guess that depends upon how much time you have to tell the story. I can select both of these layers again And somewhere in the middle, just drag them a little more like this. Click to deselect both layers and just select the top layer again and extend it again back to frame 0. And this time I'll just move that keyframe that I already created. And that gives it a little extra time to get up there. Let me make sure it starts totally off screen. We got our cloud showing up. All right, now that the cloud shows up, it's time to erase the cloud.